Okay, to start where we left off on this fly that we were looking at and the different materials and different methods for fastening materials to the hook. Now, if this was the end of our fly, of course we've got a lot of room here. Normally our fly materials would go up to about there and then we would tie off. But this was just a practice fly to show a number, to demonstrate a number of different materials that you can put on a fly. If this was the end of the fly, we would use this tool. This is the whip finish tool. Now, to use a whip finish tool, you need to pull a little bit of thread off of your bobbin. Now remember, this is the last step. This is where we basically are making a knot to tie this fly off and be able to snip it. Okay, so I'm going to take my whip finish tool. And remember, this thing spins. This whip finish tool spins. I hold it right here. I'm going to hold it right there by this part, because that way the bobbin will not spin. It'll only spin if I twist my hands. Or not the bobbin, but the whip finisher. I'm going to take the whip finisher. You'll notice that little hook on there, and I hook in. I've hooked in to the thread. Now there's another little hook down here, and I'm going to hook into the thread up top, lift the thread with my left hand so that now both the top and the bottom of my whip finisher have got the thread in their hooks. Now I'm going to twist my hand to the right, slowly, slowly, and eventually I end up with, you can see that little triangle that we've made between the two hooks of the whip finisher and then where the threads cross each other. Now where the threads cross each other, that vertex of the triangle, we're going to try to work it. I'm just going to move my thread up to a point where it's right at the base of the hook where I want to tie it. And now, remember, this whip finisher will twist for me, so I'm just going to twist. And you can see right here, this hook is actually twisting over the other thread, which is actually causing a knot. Usually you twist 5 or 6 times, and then I push the whip finish all the way up to here to get that hook of the whip finisher off of the thread. Now the thread is really only connected to the very tip, but remember, it's also still connected to the thread on my left hand. So I'm going to pull my left hand, and you see that just go all the way down, right down to the hook. Then I'll move my whip finisher up, pop it off. Now we've got a nice knot right on that hook that's been whip finished. Really effective knot. I'll do it again, maybe a little bit faster this time. So I set the whip finisher, hold the thread just like this, kind of angling towards my body. Can't see that very well in the video, but it's angling towards my body a little bit, the thread is. I'm going to take the whip finisher, lay it on the thread, hook in at the top, hook in at the bottom. When I hook in at the bottom, I lift my thread, I turn the whip finisher at the same time. And I end up with my triangle again. Get the vertex right down to where I want it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Got my 5 wraps. I'm going to push the whip finisher up to that point so that this part of the whip finisher loses the thread. Now we're just connected there. I'll pull, 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 pull until it's tight, and just pop that off of there. There it is. That's how you whip finish a fly. Next step would be to snip, and if I wanted to, I would take this soft X or the fly head cement, and I would open this up, dip a little in there, put it right on there, but we're not going to do that for this fly.
Okay, so we've looked at one angle from the perspective of the camera of how to use a whip finisher, and I'm going to show you another angle because the whip finish tool can be somewhat difficult to learn how to use. So I thought maybe it would be nice to see the perspective that I would see, or a fly tyer would see, before they were to whip finish a fly. So I've got a hook in the vise. I'm going to put this thread on the hook so that we have the thread to whip finish. I think I might even snip that extra tag right there to clean things up. And now I'm going to use the whip finish tool and we will give you an example of what the whip finish tool looks like from the perspective of the fly tyer. So I've got my thread on the hook, and we're imagining that we just finished our fly. First thing I need to do is I need to pull some thread down. So I pull the thread down, so I've got a little bit to use. Got my whip finisher here. I'm going to take this whip finisher and I'm going to hook it in. Hook it in, moving from left to right. Now there's also this hook down here. I'm going to lift the thread up into that little smaller hook there, just like that. As I lift the thread, get to about this point, I'm going to take my right thumb right here. I'm going to take it off of that little spring-loaded hook, turn the whip finish to the right, so that now it runs the same length. It runs parallel to the actual shank of the hook, and hold the thread to the left. Once I do that, now you can see that little triangle and the vertex where the threads cross. Get it right down to where the hook is, and you would just twist. And this whip finish is kind of nice. You can see this spring here. It actually loads that thing a little bit. It helps tighten it, give you a nice tight finish on your hook. Once you've done that, then you run the whip finisher up to the point to where it comes off of this one down here. Now it's only stuck to the hook up here and the thread. So as I pull on the thread, that's a whip finish. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time just to give you another example. So I take my whip finisher, I hook it in from left to right, I lift the thread up so that it gets on the smaller spring-loaded hook down here. Thread comes up. Once I get to about right here, I turn the whip finisher so that it is parallel with the shank of the hook. You should form a triangle, and the vertex of the triangle where the two lines cross is where you want it to touch the hook. And you just wrap. And you bring this portion of the whip finish up to where the wrap is to get it off of there. Then you just pull on your thread, and then you've whip finished. So there you go. That's just another different perspective of how to whip finish a fly from the perspective of the actual fly tyer. Hopefully that's helpful.